Kato, you way too dope, kid.
I've been living around this morning through a rain. Getting pain, getting tears. Had to keep them locked away. I done shed so many tears. Heal my heart, save my soul. I buried my heart anew. They've been working on my soul, but I'm so blessed. Leave it up to God, so right now I just worry less. Yeah. Heal my heart, save my soul.
Kato, you way too dope, kid.
The pain from my past.
My name's Daryl. They call me D-Rail. I started sound engineering when I was really young. I want to say 14 or 15. And it kind of started as a passion. It's just something that I really like. It brought me a certain type of happiness that I couldn't get any other way. And I feel like that's how it goes with some people. And sometimes you pick up on something and it just sticks, and it just kind of stuck, and here we are. And it just turned into the full-time thing after a while. And I record, let's see, I want to say 60% of what I record is hip-hop. Another 30% of what I record is heavy metal. I like hip-hop and heavy metal the most, so I kind of work with what I really enjoy the most, you know what I mean? And then maybe 5 or 10% other stuff, some punk rock, a little bit of some pop rock, etc. But I tend to stick with hip-hop and heavy metal the most because that's what that's what I like the most. And then on the side, I MC. It's kind of just a side hobby of mine. So I'm into hip-hop a lot, like on a deeper level. So and it's cool because I connect with people's music a lot. Like when you spend like all day working on someone's song, you really connect with that artist, and you really kind of peer into their mindset and see like, you know, like what they were, like you understand their music on a deeper level. And that's something that's just something that brings me a certain type of happiness that I just can't get any other way. And I fucking love it.
So tell me the first project you worked on.
Man, that's tough. The first project here or the first project at the first studio?
Well, let's start with the first studio.
So the first studio, it would have been, it was a hip hop project. I can't really pinpoint what my memory gets kind of vague the farther back I go. But I think it was Concrete Jungle by Arrow One, sometime in like maybe 2010. Something like that. And back then it was a little bit, the whole way that music was distributed was a little bit different because streaming wasn't quite as popular yet. So you could still sell CDs, not like you could in the early 2000s, but you still could sell CDs. And that project got a lot of good feedback and a lot of recognition by people, just because there was a lot of good promotion behind it, and like just the way that they put their marketing behind it.
So how did that project help you move forward into some of the projects you're working on now?
You know, it got me, so especially with hip-hop, and with all types of music, but especially with hip-hop, and especially in this area, the artists are very mutual. There's a lot of mutual connections. Like, the artists are kind of one big network. Like, everybody is mutual with somebody else. Like, everybody, it's no more than like a couple people before everybody knows everybody. And so if you do good work for somebody, I think, and now sound engineering as a business is a lot different than it was 20 or 30 years ago. Now it's kind of, you have your own network of people. If you do good work, they communicate, and that's how business comes to you. So I think the way that they were integrated with other artists was sort of a stepping stone for me, because they spread the word out, and then a lot more artists came to me, and that's kind of how it's always been. It's been, I do good work for somebody, they know somebody that might need that work, and then they send it, and then that's just how it goes. And then over time, I've kind of gravitated to a specific pool of artists. I like really lyrical hip hop. I like people that are really into their craft, people that are really serious about their craft, because the way I see it, I think that sound engineering and music talent needs to be matched with equal force. I think if somebody's a talented musician and they go to a shit studio and they do a half-assed job on it, that's not doing their music any justice. If there needs to be an equal force on both sides. If somebody takes, 10, 20, 30 hours to rehearse and write a song, there should be a similar nature of work on that on the production end.
So, how have the hip-hop game changed since you got into it?
Man, that's such a complicated question because there's a lot of ways that it changed. In what sense would you say?
On the production side.
On the production side, well, I think it's changed as studios, I think as the studio business has changed, that has kind of influenced the production side. So it's become harder and harder to make a livable wage as a sound engineer. And so for that reason, a lot of studios have this in and out mentality. It's get it done as quick as possible, get in, get out, get the next artist in, and slap it together. And good mixes take time. It doesn't matter how good of an engineer you are. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. Like a good mix, if the mix is 40 or 50 tracks, that takes a work day. That takes hours and hours. And I think hip-hop production has seen it, even in some mainstream hip-hop, like even in some known hip-hop, it's just slapped together. And I think it's a combination of artist mentality and studio mentality. It's where, I actually know, I think it's studio mentality influencing artist mentality, where studios have this in and out mentality, and then artists that haven't been in the game for long, that are just now getting into recording, they think that that's how it goes, and then they rock with it. But really, if you go back in time, audio production was done, at least with hip-hop, I know, audio production was taken overall in general with more care. Now, that's not to say that some hip-hop production isn't still being done very well, because yes, there is some hip-hop production that's being done very well still. But overall, I think it's seen a decline in the amount of care that gets taken with it. Now, other types of music, not so much. A heavy metal song, depending on, at least for me, depending on how complicated the drum setup is, depending on the mic setup and whatnot, and depending on just how many parts to the song there are, that's going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 days to record and mix in entirety. A hip-hop song, for the full job, in-depth job that I like to do, I'm going to say anywhere from 6 to 12 hours for a hip-hop song, but sometimes more. There's some songs I can think of that took a few days for a hip-hop song. There was one song that my homie Posy did. It was a pop rock song a couple months ago. It was about his uncle that died, and that song took 5 days to record and mix in entirety. The mix was 170 tracks. There are probably, and the person that does all of his instrumentation, he'll do what I call a wall of guitars. So he'll take one guitar, he'll record it, use whatever effects pedal, take another guitar, do another chord with another effects pedal. And because he's so good at music theory, like when you put it all together, it sounds freaking awesome. And he's like, use all 30 guitar tracks, use all of these guitar tracks all at once. I want them all. And they're like, all right then. And the next thing you know, it's 170 tracks and it takes 5 days to mix. And sometimes that happens. But typically with a hip hop song, I want to say a full work day I'm at. Typically with a metal song, 2 to 3 work days, depending on the level of production.
So you think it's easier now to get started with the level of production that you would put out there today, or back then?
I think back then a lot more. And also it hasn't become easier to achieve a given level of production in terms of skills, but it's become easier to achieve a given level of production in terms of equipment. Like 20 years ago, when you weren't recording on computers, it was a whole different thing. Like they had DTRS systems and hard drive recorders. You had to mix it on the console. It was you needed a whole way more list of equipment. Now you can, like what a freaking $60,000 DTRS system with 80 or 100 tracks could do, you could do on a laptop now. So in terms of skills, really what sound engineering hasn't changed, but the equipment that's used in it has changed drastically as technology has advanced. And it's freaking awesome, computers are great. Just not having to replace all the heads in your DTRS system is freaking awesome now.
You also said you did some recording yourself, right?
I do. So my music and sound engineering are two very different passions, and they both make me happy in different ways, and I like having both of those outlets. I don't really, how should I say this? I'm not so much inclined to have a musical career. I MC because it's something I really like. Like, I've been writing since I was really young. I've been rehearsing since I was really young. And when I get the time to, because I don't always have the time to, when I get the time to, yeah, I record my own songs. But I kind of limit, I have to limit how much time I put into that, just because I like audio production is really my main course, and that's what most of my time goes into. And I want to make rounds through everybody. Like, once I get, once the whole roster, once I have a little bit of time, once everybody's got their stuff out of the way, then I'll work on one of my songs for a couple days, and then I'll go back to everyone else, and then kind of a pattern. So I would say maybe 5% of the time working on my music, the other 95% of the time doing the thing for everybody.
So what are the best things that you've experienced working with other people and helping them put stuff together? I
think all of it. As I've gotten older, I think the average age group of the people that I work with has gotten older too. And it's interesting to see, like, as I've been in this longer and longer and met more and more people, I've come across, it seems like as people get older, if they're still doing music at a certain age, it's because they're more and more and more focused on it. And so, and I think the time that they spend on it goes up, and I think how seriously they take it goes up as they get older, if they still stay, if they still have the passion. So I think just the growing process of just meeting new people, making new music, and like I think every song is an experience, especially when I'm spending a whole day on that song and I really see into the artist and see into their mindset and whatever it may be about. It's a way to, it helps you understand people on a deeper level too, and I think that's just freaking amazing.
So how much time do you normally spend, on a weekly basis with your work?
So it's gone down a little bit over time, because it used to be like 12-hour days every day, and just because, like, I love it. But at the same time, over time, I've realized like I love this, but at the same time, I have to have time for some other things in life. Like, I can't just be spending 100% of my time in the studio and sleeping, and then that's it. Like, I have to be social. I have to have a social life. I have to have hobbies. I have to have other things. So now I typically do 8 to 9 hour days, 7 days a week. So I don't take days off, but I typically do 8 to 9 hour days. So then I have a little bit of time to maybe write, maybe rehearse, maybe go hang out with friends and some other things. So I can do life stuff and be a normal person and not be a hermit all day.
Do you think your personal life is affected at all by your schedule?
I think in the past it definitely has been. And, no matter how much you love to do something, I think you should always make time for some other things, because you have to maintain your social skills. You have to keep a revolving environment. You can't just spend all of your time in the same room all the time. Now, if you love to do something, like, by all means, spend most of your time doing that, but you can't spend all of it. You have to socialize. You have to spend time with your friends. You have to make time for life stuff. You have to be a person in other ways too.
Have you lost friendships because of too much time in the studio?
I don't think so. And maybe, I don't know, I feel like some people just naturally gravitate apart because their lives take separate turns, and not necessarily lost friendships, but lost time with people, and I think just steered courses with people just because. But that's what happens, I think, with everybody. I think people's lives just sometimes go in different directions, and they gravitate away from each other.
So who are your best artists, you listen to today?
So I listen to a lot of different types of music. I listen to a lot of hip hop. I listen to some metal. I listen to a lot of EDM. I go to a lot of EDM festivals too. I really love festivals. But that I listen to, in terms, okay, would you say in terms of artists that I work with, underground or known artists?
Best music on your playlist, I would say.
That's so tricky. That's so tricky. Maybe if there's anything in particular, some older Eminem, some Kendrick, some older J. Cole, and a lot of the artists that I work with, I really, because over time, I've sort of gravitated to the artists that I really enjoy working with the most and whose music I enjoy the most, and because of that, I don't just work on their music here. I feel like if an engineer truly enjoys the music that they're working on, they should be able to take it and listen to it on their free time when they're not in the studio, and that is something that I do a lot because I appreciate the artists that I work with and I appreciate their music a lot, like on a deeper level than just producing it. So yeah, a lot of the people I work with, if I could pinpoint any specific mainstream artist, I would say a decent amount of old school Eminem, decent amount of Kendrick, decent amount of old school J. Cole, stuff like that.
So who's the most talented artist you're working with now?
Man, so many names come to mind. I could think of 4 or 5 particular ones. My homie Double Entendre. Dude's a beast. Dude's a freaking beast. He just okay, now in terms of bands and stuff, all of them, man. All of them. There's so many underground bands in Chicago that it's like, why aren't you famous? There's so many. But in terms of hip hop, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 specific ones. So my homie Double Entendre, my homie J.O., my homie Jameson Winter, my homie Boston, a.k.a. Big Bean. He's out. He was out in California for a while. And we were doing some stuff remotely. And then now I think he's in Clearwater, Florida now. He's in one of the places by Tampa. And then we're trying to get some more remote work. And working remotely is difficult. Working remotely with bands is next to impossible because just getting all... Okay, so good... We'll get to that in a second. Working with bands remotely, that's almost impossible because tracking and getting all that stuff properly recorded in not a proper acoustic space is not a thing. But working remotely with hip hop, you can get very good vocals in. Like you can build a booth and get an excellent mic and preamp and all the stuff that you need to get excellent vocals in a home environment. So working remotely with hip hop is practical, and that's something that I do with some artists. My homie King Cyrus, he's from Florida. We do everything remotely. My homie Bean, we were doing everything remotely with for a while. My homie Morality, we were doing everything remotely with for a while. And so, yeah. But I like to record stuff here just because we've got all the good preamps, we've got the acoustics, and we have all the stuff that it's just, yeah.
So tell me about the hip hop culture in Chicago.
So the underground hip hop scene in Chicago stretches. I think that Chicago is one of the most vast areas in the U.S. for underground hip hop talent. Now, the money's in L.A., and there's a certain ceiling I feel like that Chicago puts on. There's a certain ceiling that Chicago puts on artists when it comes to careers. Now, that's not to say that you can't make an amazing music career in Chicago, because you can, but you tend to see a lot more music careers in LA for whatever reason. I feel like the weather, mainly. People just like LA just because it's nice. And that's kind of where a lot of the labels are headquartered. But the underground hip-hop music scene in Chicago is freaking limitless. There is unlimited artists, and it stretches all genres of hip-hop. Lyrical hip-hop, old school hip-hop, trap, drill, everything. I think the whole drill thing started in Chicago. I'm not too into the drill hip hop, but
Why not?
I don't know, man. Okay. There's a lot of people I feel like that do hip hop because not because they like to make music, but because they think it's cool, or they do it for clout or for some other reason. And I think that if you make music, the only reason that you should be making music is because you like making music. Make music because you love making music, and every other thing should be a take it as you go. If you blow up and get famous, dope, like take it as you go. But make music because you love to make music. Don't make music for clout, or don't make music because you like, make music because you love making music, and you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that do hip hop just for clout, and I don't understand that. Like, if it's not your true passion, like, there is something else that's your true passion that you should be doing. You know what I mean?
You don't think it's possible to just be able to just be good at something and make money at it, and that's that? You think?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You absolutely can. I think some people are naturally good. I think some people are just naturally good at things, whereas some people, yeah, I think some people just have a natural talent for certain things. And then music especially, like some people are just naturally musicians and just naturally are good at making music.
So what are the plans for you for the next 12 months, like?
So I'm going to be here for a while, just because moving the studio is a daunting task, because there's so many different things. Like there's rooms that need to be rebuilt and things that need to be remade, and all the furniture is going to get redone. And so by the time I'm 30, I'm 27 now, I want to migrate the studio to LA. Mainly because there's a lot more business in LA. There's a lot more artists that will invest, I feel like, in LA. And just because I want to change the scenery, because I've been in Chicago since forever, since I was born. So I want to change the scenery.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's looking to get it, to be an engineer and to get to the level that you're on? Like, what amount of work and time it takes to...
So I think... So if there's somebody that already has a foot in the door and knows the basics and knows how to track, knows the basics of how to mix, skip school and go straight to getting your practice in. Because I started with an understanding but no experience at all. And like at the beginning, like 15 years ago, I had no clue like what I was doing and all of this. So mixing is pretty simple. In a general sense, mixing is EQ, compression, leveling, and the fader is an EQ. By changing the volume of something in the mix, imagine the fader is an EQ. And by changing the volume of something in the mix, you're EQing the mix. You're masking certain frequencies, unmasking certain frequencies, etc. So it's really basic. It's just how good are you at that? How well do you have an ear to do? Now there's more to it, obviously. There's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of different. There's more aspects to it than that in like a broader sense, but as a general sense, to its simplest form, mixing is pretty simple, and it's just how good are you at the basic things. So somebody that's just getting into mixing, if they know nothing, and it's something that they really want to do, get some schooling in, get a 2-year and get the basics down, get how to track down, understand EQ, understand compression, etc. And then really just start building your clients. Like, talk to people, go out, look for artists, look for bands, recruit people, and you might have to work for free for a while, because there was a while, for the first few years, I had to work for almost nothing, and it took a while to get to a livable wage, and then to a good pay. It took years, actually, but yeah. So, start early, start building your network early, build your network of artists, and expect to probably have to do it yourself. Expect to have to run your own studio, to have your own space, to have your own clients, etc.
So, in closing, man, how do people get a hold of you,
I think it's really all just word of mouth. And like I said, because artists are very networked, and it's a network of people. If you do good work for someone, if you do good work for someone and they love your work, they'll put the word out, and it just kind of comes to you. And then You can also put energy into that. You can say like, hey, you know, if you know some people, refer me to a couple dope artists or refer me to a couple dope bands, or etc. But I think it's all really word of mouth. I've never promoted. What I have done, if you go back in the past a bit, I used to literally go to shows and open mics and meet people and just meet new artists. I would actually go out and actively meet new artists. And I think that was an important part of it for a while. And there's some of the people that I still work with that I met that way. So that is definitely an important thing to do sometimes. So now this is something I can't freaking stress enough. The best advice that I could give to aspiring sound engineers, to sound engineers that are just starting out, that have a great passion for it, that are recording people, etc. Upgrade your monitoring. Upgrade your monitoring. Better monitoring. Treat the room better. Get another bass trap. Get another absorption panel. Buy better monitors. If you're feeling saucy, have an acoustician look at your room, etc. Get better monitoring. Because think of it this way, right? What mixing is ear-to-brain coordination on the simplest level. It's hearing a multitude of things. It's hearing a mix, gauging how it sounds, knowing how you want it to sound, and knowing how to manipulate your tools to make it sound the way that you want it, on the simplest level. And your monitoring is the link to that. Your monitoring is the human interface element, right? And so the better your monitoring is, the better you're connected to that, and the higher your ceiling will be. Now, it's not to say that better monitoring will magically make you a better engineer, but it's going to be the first limiting factor. Like the first thing that's going to limit what you can do is going to be your monitoring. And also, is equally importantly, familiarize yourself with your monitoring. If you know that there's a bump at 250, like know that. If you know that there's a dip at 3K, know that. Familiarize yourself with your monitoring. And most essential piece of gear, I would say anything that adds a hint of analog character, anything that adds some thick analog saturation when needed. Because everybody says you can get the same sound with plugins, with all plugins and all digital as you can with a bunch of analog gear. That is not true. That isn't like for instance, a plugin company can take a real L2, right? And they can look at the compression curves, they can measure all the compression curves, they can program that into a plugin. And so an L2 plugin, in terms of the compression curve, is going to sound a lot like a real L2. But then you've got the input and output transformers, you've got the tubes, you got all the other analog circuitry of the real L2, and that is the part that the plugin will. So in some senses, you can get the sound of analog gear with plugins, but in other senses you can. It's mainly the saturation. It's the analog character and saturation that plugins have a great deal of trouble replicating. And so any piece of analog gear in your signal chain to add that character, I think, is essential. And so some people will probably hate me for this. Some people will be like, no, Sonar, but no. Get SonarWorks. SonarWorks is a freaking absolutely amazing tool of sound engineering, and I think that every control room should have it as an option. Not necessarily, like if you have a well-designed room, if you have well-designed monitors, you don't necessarily need it. And obviously your monitoring will never be perfectly flat. Like there's no such thing as ruler flat, truly ruler flat, but you can get very close. And I think even in a very high-end room that's properly designed with really high-end monitors, etc., SonarWorks will still find kinks in the frequency response. And so I think everybody get SonarWorks. It's only $300 and it will freaking change your life, I promise.
Well, all right. Well, thank you.
All right.